Hello and welcome to the Hindu News Analysis by Baji IAS Academy. So, in this lecture, we will discuss all the important and relevant news articles given in the Hindu newspaper. So, before discussing all these articles, please subscribe to Baji IAS Academy YouTube channel and also hit the bell icon so that you will get all important updates regarding our classes. These are the list of important news articles for UPSC and state PSC examinations, and the first article is with respect to the BRICS grouping and how the BRICS grouping has been representing the paradox where few countries are, are trying to be part of the BRICS grouping, and on the other hand, the influence or the relevance of BRICS grouping has been diminishing because of growing Chinese dominance in the grouping and the Russia Ukraine war. The second article is with respect to the carbon border adjustment mechanism. So we have discussed this article several times in the past as well. So this is important because this impacts India's exports to European Union. So in this context, we need to understand the carbon border adjustment mechanism and how it will impact India European Union trade. The third article is with respect to the axolotl mutant. This was an amphibian species. This is an amphibian species in Mexico that is able to regenerate its body parts, and how it could apply to human beings as well, so that the lost parts can be regenerated even in human beings. And the fourth article is with respect to the smart cities mission. 73% of smart city projects have been completed in this country. So we need to understand what is the smart city mission, what are the objectives, challenges, and when it was started. And the fifth and the last article is with respect to India Bangladesh ties. So we'll take this opportunity to discuss India Bangladesh ties in a very detailed way. So the first article is see, before discussing all these articles, yesterday given a practice question, we'll discuss the yesterday given practice question. The question is, India is regarded as a country with demographic dividend. So this is due to why India is regarded as a country with a demographic dividend. Four options have been given. The first option is its high population in the age group of 15 years, and the second option, its high population in the age group of 15 to 64 years, and third option, its high population in the age group of above 65 years, and the fourth option, its high total population. See, the correct answer for this question is option B. It's high population in the age group of 15 to 64 years. Because of this reason, India is regarded as a country with a demographic dividend. According to UN Population Fund, India has a total 68 percentage of population in the age group of 15 to 64 years, and India is also likely overtake China as a most populous country by the mid of 2023 as per the United Nations Population Fund population projections across the globe. Now we need to understand the definition of demographic dividend. What is demographic dividend? And this definition has been given by the United Nations Population Fund. The definition says that the demographic dividend is the economic growth potential, and that can result in shifts in population age structure. And the population age structure mainly when the share of working age population in 15 years to 64 years is larger than the non-working age share of population, that is population less than 14 years and population more than 65 years. So this is about the demographic dividend. Please try to comment the correct answer in the comment section, right? So you should also be part of this. And the today's practice question is, a closed economy is an economy which is the money supply is fully controlled, the first option, and the second option is deficit financing takes place, and the third option, only export takes place, and D, fourth option is neither exports nor imports takes place. So this is UPSC previous year question that was asked in the year 2011. Please try to answer this question and comment the correct answer in the comment section. Right. Now let's discuss all the important and relevant news articles. They are given in the Hindu newspaper. So the first article is with respect to the paradox of BRICS and its new pathway. there is a possibility that the coming BRICS summit will take place in South Africa. In this summit itself, there will be possible extension of the BRICS grouping to other member countries. There is a possibility that Indonesia, Egypt, United Arab Emirates, Argentina may part of this BRICS grouping because of the countries have been showing consensus to make it a wider organization. Apart from this, because of China's growing dominance in the BRICS grouping and as well as the diminishing of Russia because of Russia-Ukraine war have also impacting the influence of the BRICS grouping or the working of the BRICS grouping. And apart from that, the LAC dispute between China and India have also been impacting the bilateral ties and the engagement between these two countries within the BRICS grouping. Because of these increasing tensions or increasing divergences among these countries would may result in minimal cooperation within the BRICS grouping as well. Okay, so make it virtually ineffective. For example, there are few examples like SARC and bilateral tensions or the bilateral differences between Pakistan and India make SARC largely ineffective, and that led to the formation of BIMSTEC. Okay, so BIMSTEC does not have BIMSTEC not having Pakistan and SARC. In the SARC grouping, both Pakistan and India are member countries, but since 2014, it remains largely ineffective. Okay, except Pakistan and except Pakistan, all my Maldives, all other countries are part of the BIMSTEC grouping. Now, so coming to the BRICS grouping, BRICS is actually an acronym for grouping. This is world's leading emerging countries grouping. Okay, so the countries which are part of the BRICS include Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. So all these countries are part of the BRICS grouping. So you can go through here the countries which are part of the BRICS grouping. And apart from that, it is a leader summit and that convened annually. Every year the leader summit is convened, and this year the summit will be held in South Africa. Okay, and the BRICS brings together five largest developing countries of the world, and these five countries represent 41% of the global population and 24% of the global GDP and 16% of overall global trade. And apart from this, it's also an emerging investment market and global power bloc, because the bloc consists of countries, emerging countries like China, India, Brazil, and South Africa. So, therefore, this is rightly called as an emerging investment market and global power bloc. Now, if you understand the timeline of the BRICS grouping, the first BRICS summit took place in the year 2009. So, that was held in Russian Federation, and this BRICS summit focused on issues like reforming the global financial architecture, whether it is about the International Monetary Fund, World Bank, and World Trade Organization, etc. Now, apart from this, South Africa was invited to join the BRIC. Earlier, it was used to known as BRIC grouping. After the formation, South Africa was not a part of it. Only Brazil, Russia, India, China were part of the BRICS grouping. But South Africa was invited to be member of the BRICS grouping in the year 2010. After that, it became BRICS. Okay, so the acronym became BRICS, and South Africa subsequently attended the third BRICS summit, Sanya, China, in 2011. Now we need to understand the main objectives and the principles of the BRICS grouping. The main objectives of the BRICS include it seeks to deepen, broaden, and intensify cooperation within the grouping. Apart from this, and it will also deepen the cooperation among the individual countries for a more sustainable, equitable, and mutually beneficial development. BRICS takes into consideration each other's or each member's growth, development, poverty objectives, and it will also ensure or build the respective countries' economic strengths and to avoid competition wherever possible. Now, the third objective of the BRICS grouping include BRICS is an emerging and new promising political diplomatic entity. it has a diverse objectives, and these objectives are far beyond the original objective of reforming the global financial institutions. Yes, reforming the global financial institution is one of the objective, but it is not the sole objective of the BRICS grouping. The BRICS grouping deal with a wide variety of areas that include trade, climate change, terrorism, science and technology, and other areas like culture. So this is all about the BRICS grouping and members which are part of the BRICS. Now understand, we try and understand the article, what it has been talking about. Despite several achievements, it began to lose its sparkle due to the COVID-19 pandemic, the Galwan clash between India and China, and the Ukraine conflict. We are talking about the BRICS grouping. Now, the author has been saying that the BRICS grouping has several achievements on its back. So, despite several such achievements, it began to lose its sparkle, particularly because of the COVID-19 pandemic, the Galwan clash, and Ukraine conflict. And that has resulted in a global economic stress and damaged India-China ties because of the Galwan clash at the line of actual control, and also increasing China's belligerence and assertiveness in the Indian Ocean region. And it also turned Russia into a diminishing power. Okay, so the Russia Ukraine conflict has turned Russia into a diminishing power. However, the group may have lost its relevance, or the group may have lost its overall influence, but numerous nations, several nations have are actually trying to be part of the BRICS grouping. And this shows the paradox of the BRICS grouping, because on the one hand it has been losing its influence, but on the other hand several countries wanted to be part of the BRICS grouping. For example, India, Brazil, South Africa. There was an IPSA grouping, right? So IPSA grouping that was started in the year 2003. And after the formation of the IPSA grouping, China showed its intention to be part of the IPSA grouping. But however, even though South Africa has given a go ahead for China to be part of the IPSA grouping, the other two members, India and Brazil, were not interested to make China part of the IPSA grouping, because their contention was that IPSA grouping primarily as a grouping of democracies only. Okay, but Brazil and India would not go along with the South Africa, maintaining that the forum is open to democracies only. Now, after the this proposal, after the contention by both Brazil and India, China played a trump card. How China played a trump card? Because it decided to bring South Africa into the BRICS grouping. It decided to bring South Africa into BRICS grouping in the year 2010. So since its intention to be part of the IPSA grouping not fulfilled, China has invited South Africa into the BRICS grouping. A new club overshadowed the old one. The BRICS grouping overshadowed the old group, that is IPSA grouping. And IPSA has been unable to hold its summit since 2011. Since 2011, the IPSA was non-functional largely. However, the BRICS had held 14 summits in the past 13 years. So since South Africa became part of the BRICS summit, the IPSA was overshadowed by the BRICS summit. Right now, the BRICS focused its attention on both geopolitical issues and economic dimensions. By how it focused its attention by articulating the common view on key global and regional issues. And BRICS grouping is very often projected as non-Western view, because China, Russia very often show the non-Western view, and these two countries are part of the BRICS countries, and so it is very often projected as non-Western view. And apart from this, countries like India, South Africa, and Brazil are also part of the global south. So therefore, there is a reason that this grouping is maybe projected as a non-Western view, and this strengthen the world's march towards the multipolarity. Since the view of the BRICS is that it is a non-Western bloc, and it takes a stand on global key and regional issues. it strengthened the world's march towards the multipolarity. So what is a multipolarity? Multipolarity is a multiple power centers. During the Cold War period, we have experienced the bipolarity. Okay, what is a bipolarity? Only two centers of power, USSR on the east and West US on the west. So that is bipolarity, and now we are experiencing multipolarity, and this has been helping the dominating influence or curb the dominating influence of the West across the world. However, on the economic front, BRICS grouping has launched several initiatives. So, what are those initiatives? The first initiative of the BRICS grouping is it launched a new development bank which has committed to 32.8 billion in 96 projects. So, this is the first initiative of the BRICS grouping. And the second initiative of the BRICS grouping is a contingent reserve arrangement, and it is actually a financial mechanism, and this mechanism protect against global liquidity pressure. And the third initiative of the BRICS grouping is that a comprehensive program that expands trade and investment cooperation among the five BRICS member countries. So these are the initiatives which are launched by the BRICS grouping on the economic front. Now, apart from this, there is an admission rush. Several countries have been interested to be part of the BRICS grouping. So therefore, we need to understand what are the countries which are, showing interest to be part of the BRICS grouping. So there are 19 countries now stand in line. Now we need to look at those countries from the different continents or different regional perspectives. First is Latin America. There are four countries which are showing interest, or now they are in stand in line to join the BRICS grouping. These countries are Argentina, Nicaragua, Mexico, and Uruguay. So they are from the Latin America or South American continent. So after that, Africa, from Africa, Nigeria, Algeria, Egypt, Senegal, and Morocco are trying to be part of the BRICS grouping. And from the Asian continent, 10 countries are trying to become the part of the BRICS grouping, and those countries are Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, Turkey, Syria, Iran, Afghanistan, Indonesia, Thailand, Kazakhstan, and Bangladesh. So these are all the countries which have been showing their intention to be part of the BRICS grouping. However, there were several explanations may be offered for these countries' intention to be part of the BRICS grouping. So, what are those explanations? We need to understand those explanations as well. First is that China is pushing for the expansion. Now, Chinese geostrategic influence has been expanding enormously. So, therefore, China wanted to use a BRICS grouping as or BRICS grouping as a device to expansion of its strategic device or expansion of its strategic goals to extend its global influence. Okay, so it wanted to use BRICS grouping as a device to extend its global influence. And the second explanation maybe is that the demand to join BRICS stems from the FOMO, fear of missing out on the membership of a club that has some visibility. Okay, so there is a fear of missing out among several countries, that they may miss the membership of the BRICS grouping, and that has some visibility. And the third would be many countries realize that the doors of other groupings are closed for them. Since the doors of other groupings have been closed for them, so they are showing interest to be part of the BRICS grouping. And please also understand, BRICS is a grouping which has enormous potential, because the countries like China, India, Russia, Brazil, and South Africa, they are huge economic powers, military powers, and they have a huge potential in future. So therefore, these countries have been showing interest to be part of the BRICS grouping. However, the finally the clamor reflects prevailing anti-Western sentiments. Okay, so since this grouping is viewed as an anti-West group, so the clamor actually reflects the prevailing anti-West sentiments among the member countries. Okay, so and also a pervasive desire to create a sizable forum for global South. Now, countries like India, Brazil, and South Africa, which are part of the global South. Since there was no functional or effective forum for the global South, there is an intention among the countries within the global south to form a sizable and more effective forum for all these countries. Okay, so these reasons have been explaining the intention of these countries to be part of the BRICS grouping. However, the next big summit to be held in South Africa from August 23 to 24. However, when it comes to the expansion of the BRICS grouping, there are three options which are available presently. The one option is a mega expansion, and this mega expansion rises the membership from 5 members to 21 members. And the 5 members we have already discussed those members, and there will be a mega expansion. And this mega expansion, I mean, so in this summit, there is a likely possibility that the countries, the BRICS countries, would take a decision on the expansion of the BRICS summit. So three options are: one is mega expansion and take the membership to 21 countries, thus surpassing the G20 grouping. Currently, G20 has 19 countries plus European Union. So therefore, further expansion of the mega expansion take the total number of countries in the BRICS from 5 to 21. Secondly, a limited expansion of admitting 10 new members and each supported by existing member. Okay, so two countries must be supported by each existing member, and the other possibility is admission of only 5 more members. Admission of only 5 more members, and each member should be supported by at least one existing member, provided that other countries are not vetoing their membership. Okay. However, India's position is that India favors the expansion of this grouping. However, India says that it should be based on agreed criteria, and India moves gradually on the expansion of the BRICS grouping, taking into consideration all the possibilities. Next, should the third option I mean, if this third option is being implemented, then most likely that, or there is a possibility that Argentina, Egypt, Indonesia, UAE, Bangladesh are most likely states that make into the BRICS grouping. So if third option is followed by the BRICS member countries, the likely or the possibility of Argentina, Egypt, Indonesia, UAE and Bangladesh may become the members of the BRICS grouping. So this is all about the BRICS grouping and expansion of the BRICS grouping. The next article is with respect to European Union's carbon border adjustment mechanism. Okay, we need to understand what is a carbon border adjustment mechanism. See, this is very important. Okay, so this is very important for both prelims and mains exams perspective. We need to understand the mechanism very clearly and how it will impact the India's trade with the European Union, India's exports to European Union, because in terms of trade, European Union is the third largest trading partner for India. So therefore, there will be a huge impact on India's trade with the European Union, right? So we try and discuss this article, the carbon border adjustment mechanism. Okay, so this has been described as a landmark tool to put a fair price on the carbon, right? So during the production process of carbon intensive goods. For example, in simple terms, the carbon border adjustment mechanism is a tool. Okay, so this is a tool, and what this actually do, this put a fair price on the carbon emitted during the production process. For example, imagine there is a non-European Union country. Okay, there is a non-European Union country, and this country uses the carbon intensive technologies. Okay, carbon intensive technologies. Now, carbon intensive technologies are technologies which produces more carbon during the production process. Now, these carbon intensive industries may produce goods, and these goods likely exported to the European Union. Okay, so since these carbon intensive goods are exported to the European Union, in European Union there are already strict regulations, there are already strict laws for the carbon emission or the lower emissions of the carbon. So therefore, such carbon intensive goods which are produced in the non European Union markets exported to European Union, then they will be charged. Okay, they will be taxed. And this has been described, and this is a landmark tool, and that put a price on carbon emitted during the production of carbon intensive goods, and those goods have been entering the European Union markets. Okay, so this is also described as a tool to encourage cleaner industrial production in non-European Union countries. Right, now understand this. If a country, if non-European Union country, now it has been exporting a significant amount of goods to European Union. Since European Union has imposed the carbon border adjustment mechanism, the exports become costly for the European consumers in the European markets. Since exports become costly, there is a possibility that the exports of non-European Union goods to European Union might reduce or might decline. So therefore, in order to enhance exports into the European Union markets, the European non-European Union the non-European Union countries may adopt less carbon intensity production methods, or they may use renewable technologies. So therefore, it is also a tool to encourage cleaner industrial production in non-European Union countries. Okay, so this is what the European Union's stand. However, if you understand, most of the countries which export to the European Union are poor and underdeveloped countries. Okay, they are poor and underdeveloped countries, particularly in the global south. However, historically, the Western developed countries are responsible for the climate change and global warming, and they have to meet their obligations by financing the renewable infrastructure projects or renewable projects or green projects in the developing countries, and they also transfer the technologies. However, they are not moving swiftly on financing and technology transfer to developing and least developed countries. However, they are taxing the products, or they are taxing the exports of poor and uh, poor global south countries. So therefore, it will have a significant impact on the overall trade or overall development of the countries which are part of the global south. And this is also considered as a regressive method on the part of the European Union. Okay, now we need to understand what exactly is the carbon border adjustment mechanism. So the primary objective of the carbon border adjustment mechanism is avoid or avert carbon leakages. And how this mechanism avert the carbon leakages? We need to understand this avoid or avert the carbon leakages in the following way. For example, European Union has imposed strict climate regulation or strict emission regulations. Okay, so strict emission regulation laws are in place. So what happens that the European Union countries shift their production basis to less climate compliant or less emission regulated countries. Okay, so when they shift their production basis to less climate regulation based countries, then after producing the goods, they take those goods into the European Union. Okay, so therefore, they are entering into the European market or European Union markets in a backdoor entry. So this is also called as a backdoor entry. So therefore, there will be an uncompetitive there will be an advantage for the companies who are shifting their basis from European Union to less carbon or emission regulated countries. Now, for example, understand this: the European Union manufacturers moves carbon intensive production to countries outside the region, and those countries have a less stringent climate policies. These countries have less stringent policies. In other words, replace the European Union manufactured products with more carbon intensive imports. And this is the European Union's stand, and this is what the European Union has been saying, that it has to avoid or avert the carbon leakages, and it will ensure a level playing field between imports and European Union products. Since European Union products, they have to comply with stricter climate regulations. Okay, so from imports from non-European countries or European Union companies which shift their production bases to other countries. So there should be a level playing field between the European Union companies and non-European Union companies and companies which shift their bases from European Union to other countries. Okay. However, this would form part of the this measure of carbon border adjustment mechanism. Carbon border adjustment mechanism of European Union is actually form part of the European Union's or continent's Green Deal. Okay, so because European Union has several, climate obligations. So the climate obligations of European Union include achieving 55 percentage reduction in carbon emissions compared to the 1990 levels by the year 2030, and also becoming the climate neutral by 2070. Now, climate neutral is that the whatever carbon one country emits, it has the capacity to absorb the emission. Okay, it has the capacity to absorb all the emission. This is the climate neutral or the carbon neutral. And the European Union announced that it will become a carbon neutral country by the year 2050. And what is the target of when India will achieve the net zero emissions? You have to put that in a comment section. Okay, so why are countries worried about this particular measure or the carbon border adjustment mechanism? Because the carbon border adjustment mechanism apply to imports. It initially applies to imports of certain goods. What are those goods? For example, these goods are produced from carbon intensive industries. Okay, so they use carbon intensive technologies and there is a probability of risk of leakage of carbon. Okay, so those industries include iron and steel, aluminum, cement, fertilizer, electricity and hydrogen sectors. On these sectors, the carbon border management the carbon border adjustment mechanism would apply, okay, initially. However, in 2021, United Nations Conference on Trade and Development comes up with a report and it says that Russia and China, Turkey have exposed to most of this mechanism. Okay, so the countries like China, Russia, and Turkey will be most affected because of the carbon border adjustment mechanism. So when it comes to the developing countries, India, Brazil, and South Africa would be the most affected among the all developing countries. Now, when it comes to the least developed countries, countries which are part of African continent like Mozambique, okay, so Mozambique, so they will be the most impactful because of the carbon border adjustment mechanism of European Union. Now, see, if you look at India's exports to or India's trade with the European Union, India's exports in the five segments represent less than 2%. Okay, so India's overall exports to the European Union represent only 2% in terms of these five segments. For example, fertilizer, cement, okay, so iron and steel and aluminium. So they constitute together only 2% of the total exports to the European Union in the years 2019 and 2021. However, in the short term, this will not have any significant effect, but in the long term, it will have a very high impact on overall India's trade with the European Union. Okay, so the impact of this regulation, the carbon border adjustment mechanism, may appear limiting, but its long-term effects can be severe for multiple factors. Okay, so first understand European Union being India's third largest trade partner. Okay, so European Union is India's third largest trade partner, and there is also a possibility that the trade between India and European Union likely increase over a period of time. In the coming years, the trade between these two countries likely increase. Since trade between these two countries will likely increase, there will be more impact of the carbon border adjustment mechanism on overall trade between India and European Union or India's exports. And further, India's exports to European Union will also rise, and over a period of time, more and more products will be covered under the carbon border adjustment mechanism. However, the second thing is that carbon border adjustment mechanism scope would expand beyond its current ambit. Okay, so it will cover more and more sectors in the coming days. However, given India's products have higher carbon intensity than the European counterparts, because most of our products we are not yet, or our companies not yet shift to more climate friendly technologies of production of goods. So therefore, India's products have higher carbon intensity than its European counterparts. The carbon tariffs imposed will be proportionally higher for Indian exports. So they will be higher carbon taxes on India's exports, and that make India's products more uncompetitive and reducing overall exports to European Union. However, finally, the international climate policies, including the carbon border adjustment mechanism, will further compel other countries like least developing countries, developing countries, or countries which are part of the global south. So, these mechanisms will compel the countries to impose similar regulation. For example, European Union has imposed or imposing taxes under the uh, mechanism, under the carbon border adjustment mechanism. So there is a possibility that other countries will also come up with such a mechanisms, and that will further impacts the overall trade, particularly India's trade. Now other countries impose similar regulations and eventually translating a significant impact on India's standing or India's trading relationship and overall balance of payments. Since India is a developing country, India has also been focusing on increasing its manufacturing sector, and uh, India has coming up with programs like Make in India. So there is a probability that this trading relationship of India with other countries may gets impacted, because other countries may also come up with such a regulations, and that will also impact the balance of payment crisis. So you can see here these two are developed countries, West, together called as West, US and European Union, and they are imposing the carbon border taxes. Okay, they are imposing the carbon border taxes from the poor countries. Okay, poor countries. So therefore, there is a probability that these poor countries may not be able to prosper with the help of trade with the developed countries. Okay, so they have neglected their historical responsibilities of technology transfer and financing for what they have done after the after the industrial revolution, and that has increased the global warming and leads to climate change. Okay, so the we need to understand the mechanism of the carbon border tax, how it exactly works. So we have certain European Union countries and non-European Union countries. Now, European Union countries are generally European Union countries which are based in European Union itself, and these countries are compliant with European Union climate standards, and that includes the carbon price. The climate standards of the European Union already includes the carbon pricing. So when these companies are compliant with EU climate standards, and they can easily enter into the European Union markets without any restrictions, because since they are compliant with the EU climate standards. However, there are certain non-European Union companies, non-European Union companies which are based out of the European Union, and also the other countries companies. So non-European Union companies, so if they are compliant with the European Union climate standards, or if they met the climate standards prescribed by the European Union in the same way as European Union companies, they can also enter the European Union markets without any hazard. However, if they don't met the climate standards prescribed by the European Union, and they have to pay the carbon border tax. Okay, they have to pay the carbon border tax, and the tax payable is equivalent to carbon content into the total carbon price. Okay, so however, the European Union, the problem is European Union countries have the technology and the finances to transform themselves into a more green or less carbon intensive production processes. However, non-European companies, particularly the global south, they do not have enough finances and technology to make a quick transformation or quick transition into the less carbon intensive technologies. So therefore, it may prove costly. It may prove costly for the non-European countries, particularly for countries which are part of the global south. Okay, so this is all about the carbon border adjustment mechanism. Now let's look into the next article. So the next article is with respect to the tragedy of axolotl mutant. Okay, so this is an amphibian species, and this amphibian species is a salamander. Okay, so the axolotl is a species of salamander lizard, and this is also called as an amphibian. So what is an amphibian? Amphibian is a species which live in water and land as well. So this is called as an amphibian. Now, axolotl is a species of salamander or lizard-like amphibian, and it is originally found in Xochimilco. Okay, so this is a lake which is in the Mexico City. Okay, however, the sad thing about this axolotl salamander species is that now it is almost extinct in wild, but only available in few parts of the world as an aquarium species. Okay, so it is almost extinct in the wild. So the common names which are given for the axolotl is agetic origin, and there were various names. The interpretation of the axolotl is different. This is also called as water dog, water twin, water sprite, and it is also known as water slave. So why this axolotl, the salamander species, is called as a water slave? Even though it is an amphibian, it has the capability to live on land. It mostly live in water. Okay, so it is almost live in water. So therefore, it is called as a water slave. Now, the small number of, so what is the speciality of this species, the axolotl salamander species, is that even if it lost its body parts, it can quickly regenerate its body parts. For example, if it lost its limbs, okay, if it lost its limbs, it can quickly regenerate those body parts, those lost body parts. Since it can regenerate those lost body parts, it could have a significant, you know, significant importance for human beings in terms of research. Okay, so therefore, a small number of scientists study how axolotls manage to quickly regenerate lost limbs, gills, tail, and even their eyes and parts of the head. Okay, so even if it lost all of these parts, it can quickly regenerate, and scientists have been focusing on how these salamander species or axolotls have been regenerating quickly. And the hope for such a research is that by understanding how axolotls regenerate body parts, we might gather clues or important clues on how to increase our own chances of doing the same in human beings. How can we regenerate? If we understand the mechanism which is generally followed in axolotls, and the mechanism could also be applied to human beings as well. So therefore, the scientists have been studying how this could regenerate. See, this is important for prelims. Okay, so you may get a question about axolotl in prelims, but for mains it is not very significant. Okay, so now axolotls are like a humans. Okay, so they contain two copies of every gene, right? So for example, 23 pairs. So there are 23 pairs of human genes, and so 23 from uh, mother and 23 from the parent. So axolotls are like a similar to human beings, and they are one inherited from the father and the other inherited from the mother. Okay, so the cell created as a result of axolotl sperm fertilizing the axolotl egg is called as a zygote. Okay, so there will be an egg from the female and sperm from the male, and if they fertilize, this is called as a zygote. Okay, so this is called as a, the fertilized egg is called as a zygote. Please remember this, the fertilized egg is called as a zygote, and the zygote will further develop into larvae, and which go on to become adults. Okay, so the O gene in the axolotl is primarily responsible for the regeneration in the axolotls. Okay, so the O gene was required for normal development and to regenerate the damaged body parts or damaged appendages. Okay, so therefore the latest step would be to test the components of the O gene and its effects on the wound healing and regeneration in humans. Okay, so this will possibly have important implications for human beings as well if we understand the mechanism of O gene and applying the concepts of or components of O gene to wound healing and regeneration in humans. So this is all about axolotls. Okay, so just remember the name and important characteristics of this species. So the next article is with respect to the smart cities project. Okay, so 73% of smart city projects have been completed. 73% of smart cities project have been completed. So the government has held that 90% of the funds which are allocated for the smart city project have already been utilized as of now. Okay, so they were already utilized as of now, and 73% of projects which are part of the smart cities, okay, which are part of the smart city program were already completed. Okay, so as of May 1st, total 38,400 crore was released under the mission. Okay, so the total allocation was around 38,400 crore, and out of 38,400 crore, 35,261 crore have been spent. Okay, the smart city mission is being implemented by the Union Urban Affairs Ministry. Okay, this is implemented by the Union Urban Affairs Ministry. Now we need to understand that what is a smart city mission. So what are the facilities which are generally provided under the smart city mission? Now this mission was launched in the year 2015. Okay, so this mission was also extended 1 year in the last month. Okay, so in the last month this mission also extended for 1 more year. However, only 22 out of 100 smart cities have been able to finish all the projects commissioned under the smart cities mission. Okay, so the implementation of the smart city mission is done by an apex committee, and this apex committee is headed by the secretary, Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs. Please remember this. Okay, so this apex committee is headed by the secretary, Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs, and it regularly reports on the progress of the projects through a real-time geographical management or geographical information system. Okay, so apart from this apex body or the apex committee headed by the secretary, Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs, there is also a smart city advisory forum in each smart city. There is a smart city advisory forum, and this has been established at the city level to advise and enable collaboration among various stakeholders. Okay, so there will be a various stakeholders collaboration through the smart city advisory forum. Okay, so smart cities have been convened more than 756 meeting of the smart city advisory mission. So for each smart city there will be a special purpose vehicle, and this special purpose vehicle will undertake plan, appraise, approve, release funds, and implement, manage, operate, monitor, evaluate the smart city development projects. Now we need to understand what is a smart city mission. So this mission was launched in the year 2015. Okay, so this is a centrally sponsored scheme where the funds are given by the central government and the state governments as well, 60-40 ratio for normal states. Okay, the nodal ministry for implementing the smart cities program is Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs, and the smart cities program is implemented through special purpose vehicle. Okay, so they operate, manage, plan, appraise the smart cities project. So the mission deadline is extended to June 2023. Okay, coverage of the smart cities include 100 selected cities as smart cities across the country. Okay, so the 6 fundamental principles of the smart city mission include citizen at the core, more from less, cooperative and competitive federalism, integration, innovation and sustainability, technology as a means, not a goal, and convergence among different schemes for the urban development. Okay, so next we need to understand what are the smart solutions which are generally applied to the smart city mission. So the smart solutions include e-governance and citizen services, and the components which are part of the e-governance and citizen services include public information, grievance redressal, and electronic service delivery, citizen engagement, citizen city eyes and ears, video crime, monitoring, which are part of the e-governance and citizens services. And second component would be waste management. Okay, second solution is waste management, and waste to energy and waste to fuel. Secondly, waste to compost, and third, wastewater treatment, and fourth, recycling and reduction of waste. And the third component is water management. There will be smart meters and management of water usage. And apart from this, the leakage identification will be done, and the preventive maintenance of water storage structures will also be done. So apart from that, water quality will also be monitored regularly. Now, when it comes to energy management, smart meters will be installed, and apart from that, the management of smart meters will also takes place. Now, renewable sources of energy, for example, rooftop solar energy, etc., will be encouraged, and there will be energy efficient green buildings. And the fifth solution is urban mobility, smart parking, intelligent traffic management, integrated multimodal transportation. Now, other solutions which are part of the smart cities mission include telemedicine, teleeducation, incubation, trade facilitation centers, and skill development centers. So there are certain challenges for the smart cities mission. So the challenges include managing finances, because SPVs, the special purpose vehicles, have been facing difficulties in mobilizing funds and transferring them to special purpose vehicles, and using them efficiently is also a challenge. The second challenge is urban problems. There are several urban problems like air pollution, road congestion, decline in public transportation. And the third challenge is policy issues. There are several policy issues like hindrances in getting environmental clearances. And the fourth policy is data privacy and security. And the fifth challenge, lack of center state coordination. So these are the challenges to the smart cities mission. So what is the way forward for the proper and effective implementation of the smart cities mission? So it includes decentralization, and the decentralization include planning at a municipal and state level for better implementation of the smart city mission programs. And secondly, policy issues. There are several policy issues like red tapeism, environmental clearances, and they should be taken care of. And the third is public-private partnership model. And public-private partnership model is very important for better administrative and technological capabilities for proper implementation of the smart cities mission. And there is a need for an integrated approach for holistic development, transportation, and energy housing. Okay, so promotion of citizen engagement in smart cities mission is also very crucial and important. Now, this is all about the smart cities mission. Now, let's discuss the next article. So, the next article is with respect to India gives Bangladesh a key rail infrastructure. Now, India has been supporting Bangladesh in several ways. So, let's take this opportunity to discuss the India-Bangladesh relationship in a comprehensive manner. Okay. Now, the India-Bangladesh relations are a wide variety of relations we are having. So, they include the economic cooperation. So, the components which are part of the economic cooperation is the bilateral trade between India and Bangladesh is around $9 billion. Okay, so they include a removal of non-tariff barriers. So, non-tariff barriers are like sanitary measures, phytosanitary measures, which are act like a barriers between trade among two different countries. Okay, so removal of non-tariff barriers such as harmonizing standards for goods accepted by India, and this will further facilitate Bangladeshi exports into the Indian markets. And this is a bilateral trade, and bilateral trade is around $9 billion. And when it comes to tourism, in 2018, Bangladeshi tourists accounted for around 21.6 percentage of tourists visiting India. Okay, so Bangladeshi tourists alone accounted for 21.6 percentage of total tourists, and Bangladesh contributes to 50 percentage of India's health tourism. Now, health tourism is new method of tourism where because of higher costs in their respective countries, patients visit India and get their treatment done and go back to their respective countries. Okay, this is called as a medical tourism. And overall medical tourism industry uh, 50% alone from the Bangladesh. Okay. Now, apart from that, the power related cooperation between India and Bangladesh include in the year 2018, Indian exports of electricity to Bangladesh reached 1,160 megawatt. Now, 1,600 megawatt power station with dedicated transmission system being developed to boost power trade between India and Bangladesh. So, India, in collaboration with Russia, will be involved in Bangladesh first nuclear power plant at Raipur. Okay, so Bangladesh is also constructing nuclear power plant with the help of Russia and India. Now, secondly, we need to understand there will be a third train route was also inaugurated between Agartala and Okuhara, and so that was already inaugurated. Okay, so that will be operational between Dhaka and Kolkata and Kulna and Kolkata routes. Okay, so already Dhaka and Kolkata lines and Kulna and Kolkata routes, there were already two train routes operational. Now, five additional bus services were introduced in the year 2018. The first ever Dhaka Kolkata cruise ship was launched in 2018 March. Okay, so majority of the Bangladeshi people prefer the land route to travel to India. Now, apart from this, we need to understand other vital areas of cooperation between India and Bangladesh. So, connectivity cooperation, boundary issue, and defense cooperation. Now, when it comes to defense cooperation, in the year 2017, two defense pacts were signed. In the year 2017, India extended a credit line of 500 million to purchase armaments, and two naval cooperation MOUs were signed between India and Bangladesh. So when it comes to the boundary issue, the signing of the land boundary agreement in 2015 and two neighbors amicably resolved the long-standing issue. And secondly, Bangladeshi government has uprooted the security threats and acts of insurgency against India. And today, the India-Bangladesh border is on one of the India's most secured border. Okay. Now, next, we need to understand the issues that need to be addressed. The first issue is Tista water sharing agreement. Now, Tista river flows into Bangladesh from West Bengal. Okay, so in this context, West Bengal government's refusal to endorse the water sharing terms agreed upon by the central government in the year 2015 has resulted in an impasse between India and Bangladesh. And secondly, there were border killings also reported. Although there were a decreased in number of issue of border killings, still remains an unpleasant issue affecting the harmony in bilateral ties between India and Bangladesh. So apart from Teesta water sharing agreement, border killings, there is also an issue of NRC, okay, National Register of Citizens. So Bangladesh does not accept the migrants travel to Assam illegally during the 1971 war, and this issue needs to be handled well and it could hurt the relations. Okay, so the other issue is Rohingya migrants, and faced with the challenge of providing shelter for more than a million Rohingya refugees, Bangladesh was upset with India's remarks over the issue during 2017. So India has also has an opportunity to display its leadership role by devising sustainable solution to the problem, thus preventing the undue interference by an ambitious China, because China has been trying to make a deeper inroads into India's neighborhood, particularly Bangladesh. So therefore, this is an opportunity for India to display its leadership role by devising a sustainable solution to existing problems, whether it is a Teesta water sharing problem, NRC problem, and the border killings problem. So that will prevent the undue interference by ambitious China in the regional matters. Okay, so these are all the issues between India and Bangladesh, and that have been affecting the bilateral ties between these two countries. Okay, so India has been providing Bangladesh key rail infrastructure. So India has sent 20 broad gauge. Okay, India has handed over 20 broad gauge locomotives to cater to the needs of Bangladeshi population. Okay, so these are all the important and relevant news articles for today's discussion. Okay, so please subscribe to the YouTube channel. Thank you.